Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Newcastle City Council regular meeting for April 1st. The time is 7 o'clock. My name is Mayor Clark presiding. This meeting is being broadcast on our YouTube channel and is also being recorded for future viewing. A reminder before we start that there are sign-up sheets for public comment on the table. There's a one marked number 1 is for the first public comment. Number 2 is for the second public comment. Please, you must sign up if you'd like to make a comment, and we'll collect those here in a moment. At this time, please rise and join us in the flag salute. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Burford.
Here.
Councilmember Sherlock.
Here.
Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Quigg.
Here.
Councilmember Charbonneau is absent. Deputy Mayor Lacotia online.
Here.
Okay. And Mayor Clark.
Here. Can I get a motion to excuse Councilmember Charbonneau?
I move to excuse Councilmember Charbonneau.
I'll second that. All in favor of excusing Councilmember Charbonneau, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? City Clerk, please note Councilmember Charbonneau is excused. Do I have any desired changes or additions to tonight's agenda?
Is this where we get to pull stuff off the consent?
No,
agenda?
that'd be later. Seeing none, show tonight's agenda approved as written. Next up, we have public comment. The city clerk will hand me the sheet with your name on it. If you're signed up, I'll call you one at a time. Please come to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to talk about whatever issue you'd like. When the buzzer sounds, we would ask you to please wrap it up at that time. Okay, first up, Larry Fudge.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. I just wanted to address some of the things that happened in the last council meeting. First off, I commend you, Mayor, for maintaining a decorum in the meeting, and I wish it would stay that way and that many people here could abide by that, but they can't. Well, couldn't at that time. The other thing I wanted to address was that we have a lot of people brought in. I'm not sure why or how they're getting here, but they're showing up at our council meetings, pitching their agendas from their cities, and they're taking up seats and taking up our time when we have a crowded hall. I would like the council to address this issue and see if we can get this where at least the residents have the right to speak and seat first. I came in tonight and there was 15 seats up here saved, and the person was not in the position at the time, and we were told we couldn't sit here. There's books and papers and stuff on the seats. We have residents here that come in, and we have elderly in here that have had surgeries and so forth, which was a case last time where the woman was standing when there was empty seats amongst us just like they are now, but there was books on there, or somebody supposedly saving a seat from somebody that showed up much later in the meeting, and those people were leaving because that lady could not stand through the meeting with her hip the way it was. But she was a resident, and many of the people that were sitting in these seats, saving seats, where they were asked if they would give one up for her, were not even residents, occupying seats and saving them. I don't feel like that's correct. It's not something that we should have to contend with as residents if we're coming to our own town hall meeting. As far as them speaking, if it's a second go around, hey, and nobody else wants to speak, they have a right to speak, I guess. I'm not so certain they do, because what business do they have in our business, so to speak? We have a lot of agendas from outside being pitched in here, and they are from other cities, which good, they can do that in their city, but do any of you go to their cities and pitch that they should do something that they don't want to do? Do you people do this? If you do, good for you. I hope that you're treated better than...
Larry, please address the mic, thanks.
I hope that they're treated better than you were treated when they go to their other cities. and the way some of our own residents are treated here and addressed from our own residents at times, and at other times from non-residents. Again, ex-military, I only pledged allegiance to one flag, and that's the same one I still pledge allegiance to, which gives everybody else their rights to do what they want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Next up is Kathy Fudge.
Thanks, Council, for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I have been in Newcastle. My name's Kathleen Fudge. I've been a Newcastle resident for 38 years. Last week, at the last council meeting, I spoke about everybody getting along. And I feel that it has fallen on deaf ears. But my main thing about talking here is I was the person that asked others to give up the seat for the woman, the elderly woman, older than me, that had come in and had had surgery and really wanted to attend this meeting. She was unable to sit even after I asked the crowd if they could give up a seat. Seats were being held for people who were not here at the time. And this woman, and I believe it was her spouse, maybe a friend, it was a gentleman. They decided to leave because they didn't have a seat. I know this woman, just by passing. I know that she is a Newcastle resident, and she left because she could not get a seat. Tonight, we walked in here, and we found a woman putting 15 books out onto the seats back here, and she was holding the seats for people who were not here. She did not put a book on this seat, so I proceeded to go to that seat. But she ran up, threw her phone underneath me, and said, "That's my seat." And I really want to address that. I can see if your spouse or a person you came with is using possibly the restroom or might be talking to somebody and you save one seat. Saving 15 seats is not fair to others. I personally stood on the wall for over half the meeting last time until I asked a woman if I could sit next to her. She had her seat open and I asked if I could please sit there. I also want to address how we're being told about inclusion. At the last meeting, I didn't feel welcomed, and I definitely didn't feel included at the meeting. I felt as if I had been verbally attacked by somebody, and I just want to address that we're all here for one reason. I don't believe that people from other cities, Kenmore, Bothell, Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, should be able to speak if we've ran out of our allotted time for the Newcastle residents to speak. We shouldn't extend our meeting for others. In fact, their opinions should not matter to our council because they're not residents.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Kevin Kirkaldee. Kevin?
My wife and I both signed up because there's a video that we'd like to show, and it's 3 minutes long, so we wanted to make sure it is watched through the entirety. So she's next with the video.
Can we accommodate that, Director, City Manager? What? Is there?
Why not?
We've done it in the past. I know it's been a while.
I can't hear you. Can you turn your mic on?
So what is the reason we cannot do that? I mean, we have done it in the past. It's been a while.
It's not a third party. It was made by Newcastle State residents.
It's not a city-sponsored device. It would be my recommendation that we do not, this could have been better planned and reached out ahead of time. We don't typically allow anyone to insert any device into ours without our IT people looking at it first. Usually, if someone's bringing a USB port into our building and wants to use it in our system, it has to be from an unopened package. This is the first I've heard of it, and we were not, I don't even know how to move forward, so.
Director Bruns, we have done this in the past. What would be the procedure if we were going to do this?
I personally don't remember doing it in the past. It may have been done, I just don't recall. I would agree that there is a, security risk anytime you're putting something you're not familiar with into the city network.
Well, we're at a stump here. I personally would like to see what the residents have. I don't know what it is, but I can't imagine they were going to introduce viruses to us, right? City Attorney, what is your opinion? I mean, we have a request for a video.
You can always email it.
As far as whether it can or cannot be done logistically, I don't know. Legally, it can be done. I will share my concerns with the security of the system, though. I mean, I think it's generally best practice not to put third-party devices into your system. But that's just me being, I guess, the attorney that is risk-averse.
Okay, so I will ask the council to show of hands. Who would like to? What's that? No, you have a flash drive, right? Is that understand? Yeah.
Is there any reason why they can't just email it to you all? Is that not an option?
Will you, we have, so, we were planning for us to play it on our computer, on our screen, right? And we could do that if we selected to do that, right? It's okay. So let's see from the council, who would agree to see this drive? I would like to see what it is.
I want to see it. I don't think it's appropriate to not go through the appropriate channels, but if I am the lone person, I'm happy to see it. I just don't think this is appropriately planned. I agree with our city attorney that this is not appropriately planned. I'm happy to view any video. It would be, or if it can be played on your device, that would be wonderful.
Would you be willing to bring your disc back and have it vetted and show it at the next meeting? Then we can satisfy all the parties. We don't have to worry about security concerns. I know personally we have done this in the past. It's been a long time. But if you bring the disc back to the next meeting, would you be willing to do that? Have it vetted by our IT department? Well, if you play it on that device, I don't know how effective it will be if you're trying to convey it to us, right? Pardon me? Oh, go ahead and turn on your mic there.
Was the vote finished and turned down, or?
Well, we seem to have an impasse here.
Oh, it's,
You, the laptop? Yeah, there you go.
So we have two options. You can play it on that computer, or we can have it brought back and vetted, and we can play it on our system for the next meeting. You certainly can put it on your computer. How about I go on to the next public speaker while you're getting that ready? Okay. Next up is Kendra Simmons. Kendra?
I was going to play the video as
Okay.
part of my time.
All right, well, we'll hold on to you. We'll come back to you. Lissa Johnson.
Oh, sorry, I turned myself off. Winfield Ridge. It seems like the city staff always has a convenient rule or policy, shocking, right? That they get to do what they want regardless of what the residents want. Think of how wrong this is. We have a group of people that do not live in Newcastle making decisions for the people that live in Newcastle. We've been told we cannot communicate with our elected city council members because of the Open Public Meetings Act. Yet the city staff can communicate with our elected city council members with an executive session where residents are not allowed to hear what is discussed. In our neighborhood, we can't have a cul-de-sac because of an outdated connected streets policy, but city staff can push a whole development through by granting a variance to a developer to revert to a 2009 stormwater code, a 16-year-old code. That's over 1.5 decades. However, when I suggested a year and a half ago that 85th Street and 85th Lane remain separate, I was told it wouldn't meet code. Had a variance been given then, I wouldn't be here tonight, nor the last several meetings I've been at. Residents are only allotted 3 minutes to speak. However, the city staff may take as much time as they need with countless slides to justify their harmful choices. Councilmember Quigg made a motion for the installation of a fire gate. Deputy Mayor LaCosia, I'm sorry if I did not say that correctly, seconded this motion, but the city manager would not allow the vote based on convenient wording in his agenda. This issue is unfinished. However, it has never appeared in the unfinished business section of the meeting minutes. Why is this? Why should we trust the city staff to help us today or in the future when they have ignored us for years? They failed to alert the city council after receiving 60+ objections to the Tool project. They just kept pushing it through. Simply put, they did not want to do what was in the best interest of the residents. Mr. Mayor, I don't know where to look for you, I'm sorry. Deputy Mayor, council members, take the fire gate and safety of the Winfield Ridge and White Hawk residents out of the city staff's hands. Please direct the installation of the fire gate. Keep us safe.
Thank you, Alyssa. Next up, Dan Johnson. Dan?
Good evening, Council. Not related to Alyssa Johnson, by the way, but also here for the Winfield Ridge development. Look, I've been here, I've talked multiple times, I'm here with my family. There's a lot of details. I'm not here to rehash and take 3 minutes other than saying it was important enough for us and our family to come here and represent this. And so we know it is being worked through. There's a lot of frustration, as you guys know. This is something, again, that we're going to stay on top of, and we just ask that you continue to stay on top of that as well. So thank you in advance for, again, your actions. We just ask that you continue to keep it front and present and to think about the residents in Winfield Ridge and White Hawk. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Kevin or Kendra, are you ready? Whichever one of you would like to come up.
We can try it here, and somebody else maybe can bring it back next week because of spring break, so we're not available to come. So should I just hold it up here?
Hold it up a little higher, and there you go.
Is there a way to put it on straight up here too?
That's the debate we had about whether or not we could use city computers, and the answer is currently no until we get it vetted.
Well, can't the YouTube feed be streamed up there?
Can you airdrop it to the,
Director Bronze, I'm going to defer to your technological expertise. What's the best way to get this most viewed? Okay. Please be patient, ladies and gentlemen. What's the best way to get this most viewed? There's a slight delay, obviously, on YouTube. Okay. Please be patient, ladies and gentlemen. What's the best way to get this most viewed? There's a slight delay, obviously, on YouTube. Okay. Please be patient, ladies and gentlemen. There's a slight delay, obviously, on YouTube. Okay. Please be patient, ladies and gentlemen. All right, thank you for that. I would recommend two things. One is to email that to the city council members, and then if somebody's willing to give the disc to our city clerk, and she can have it vetted through our IT department, we can play it at the next meeting. So that's the two things we can do. All right. Kevin, do you still wish to come up? No? Okay. Okay, next up for public comment, Debbie Webb. Push the button in the center of the mic. Got it.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the audience. My name is Debbie Webb. I believe that raising the pride flag along with government flags causes division in the community. The city flag policy samples that are in the packet for tonight show 3 cities, none that rejected raising the pride flag. The Elk Grove shows 10 flags that are approved there. 9 are government flags, and yes, the POW MIA flag is considered a government flag based on the U.S. Congress's decision. But one flag is not like the others. One flag does not belong, the sexual preference flag. But I found very interestingly 10 cities in our country that opposed raising any flag except government flags. 3 are from California, 2 from Florida, 1 from Maryland, Ohio, Wisconsin, Utah, and Michigan. They cite their reasoning. Maryland says The decision was based on a stance of neutrality, aiming to treat all groups equally without favoring any particular cause. In Michigan, the City Council unanimously voted to ban the display of the pride flag on city property, citing respect for religious rights of citizens. And Surfside, Florida, decided not to display the pride flag, expressing concerns about potential legal implications and the relevance of the flag to town business. Como News posted on March 22nd a news article about our city, Newcastle, and the pride flag issue. They conducted a poll. You can still look at it. 90%, this is Como poll, 90% no, the city should not fly any flag besides the city, state, and American flag. Only 10% said yes. 90% said no. And the reviews on that article are extremely telling. A person from Newcastle writes, and I quote, "I live in Newcastle. Conservative opinions are not welcomed. Our city council is very divided, and if you dare to express an opinion that isn't liberal, you are shouted down and treated like a hateful and evil person. Thank goodness our brave mayor is willing to say what I am sure many other people are thinking. Yes, I am posting anonymously because I am afraid." I want to repeat that last statement. Yes, I'm posting anonymously because I am afraid. We have heard from members of the LGBTQ+ community that they are afraid. Well, people in this community are afraid of you. And another person, also a Newcastle resident, commented on this post. This is no place for the level of hatred and division brought to Newcastle by a couple of small thinkers on city council. This person goes on to name the council members and their hateful actions. I just want to add, this is serious, and our council needs to have the courage to say no to special interest groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Next up is Sophia Stott. Sophia?
Hi, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Sophia, and I'm here to talk about the pride flag. I feel that it separates us rather than unites us, as it does not represent everyone. It specifically represents the pride community. If we choose to display the pride flag, then to be fair, we would need to display all flags. However, that's simply not practical. There's not enough space on a flagpole to represent every group. This is why I believe we should stick to the American flag, as it represents all of us as one nation. Please take my thoughts into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sophia. Anna Evans. Anna?
Is it on? Yeah. Okay. My name is Anna. I'm a resident of Winfield Ridge, and I'm just going to read something really quick. At the February 18th council meeting, the tool development traffic monitoring plan was discussed. The published meeting minutes states the following: there was a consensus for the staff to gather cost estimates, review street logistics and standards, and engage with the project developer. In 41 days, per the city manager, city staff has met with the developer only one time, with only one thing coming from the meeting. We, the staff members and the developer, may not understand the conditions of approval for the monitoring plan the same. We ask that the city staff provide updates tonight on the gathered cost estimates for the traffic monitoring plan and the cost estimate for the gate. Again, you are all our constituents. You are all here for us, for the betterment of our community, not for your interests, not for padding resumes, not for any of that. I appreciate your time and your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Carol Simpson. Carol.
Good evening. My name is Carol Simpson. I live in the Lakeview Apartments in Newcastle. I'm going to take some tone from my favorite Senator Cory Booker, and I'm going to get in good trouble. Mr. Mayor, I stand before you and council yet again to lecture about how to better perform your council member job. From Newcastle Council rules for public comment. Verbal comments shall be made from the lectern. All speakers are expected to be courteous and efficient when making remarks. That is the extent of rules for public speakers at this lectern, which I observed today with courtesy and efficiency. Public comment is not a dialogue. I quote from Jurassic Parliament, "Public comment period is not a time for dialogue. A meeting of the public board is not a meeting of the public. It is a meeting of the board that is held in public. The purpose of the public comment period is for the board to receive input from its community. It is in fact a one-way communication to the board. You are the board. Council rules require council members to be courteous to one another and the public. Speak to issues, not personalities, and stay on topic. The city is committed to providing an environment that is free from all forms of harassment, including but not limited to verbal, physical, and visual harassment, so that everyone can work in a productive, respectful, and professional environment." And the council rules continue. Officials are expected not only to follow federal, state, and local regulations, but to demonstrate the highest standards of personal integrity, honesty, and conduct in all activities in order to maintain public trust. Actions that betray that trust can result in liability, either for the city or the individual under civil, criminal, and case laws. You, Mr. Mayor, serve at the pleasure of your council who elected you. You poorly represented your council, as you knew when you stated that you could be sanctioned for your anger expressed at the last meeting. Your verbally reprimanding a speaker at this lectern for their statements, no matter how repulsive to you, is infringing on their freedom of speech. You were harassing and bullying. You put the city and yourself at legal risk of lawsuit. You violated our freedom of speech, the freedom, as you stated, that generations have fought to preserve. You uplifted the honor of those who fought for our freedom. Then you turned around and violated it by denying that speaker her freedom of speech. More to my point today, you endangered the legal liability of your city in opening the city and yourself to lawsuit. You, Mr. Mayor, should know that loose lips sink ships.
Thank you, Carol. Next up is Robert Henry. Robert?
Thank you. I should know this by now. I'm Robert Henry. I live in the Florida of Newcastle, namely in the lower right-hand corner. During the public council meeting on March 18th, every council member had a chance to make a public statement regarding adoption of the city plan. When Councilmember Griffin spoke, he started talking about the DEA, which from context I assume was the Drug Enforcement Agency, a federal paramilitary force to enforce drug laws. The hot button of the city plan, occupying dozens of hours of discussion in the last months, was DEI, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, a framework for recognizing, evaluating, and mitigating various forms of discrimination. My immediate reaction, as my mother would say, was to be flabbergasted. As I reflected on the moment, I realized my mind was going three ways at once, and namely DEA, disappointment, empathy, and anger. Disappointment that Councilmember Griffin had apparently equated DEA and DEI, and that it took so long for this confusion to manifest itself. Empathy towards Councilmember Griffin as a committed, long-serving member of the community who is facing, like we all do, a variety of new challenges in navigating the world around us. Anger that Councilmember Griffin apparently was out of the loop, unable to track and comprehend the decisions the community had tasked him to make, yet still occupying a seat on the council that somebody else might be in a better position to fill. Councilmember Griffin, I ask that you exercise your rights under RCW 42-12010 subsection 2 and resign your council seat. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Next up is Tam Kameen.
We're at 30 minutes.
Tam Kameen from Olympus. Thank you. I am here to talk about the flag policy, and I'm glad that after all the controversy we've had, that we are looking at doing a flag policy. I read it carefully, and two things stuck out to me. The first one is that any flag other than the American state or MIA POW flags are commemorative flags. And also, the flags on our city pole are actually official government speech. That means whatever we put on that flagpole is official government speech. Now, I am totally in favor of what we have and what we've done in the past with just the American, the POW, and the state flag, and I have to agree with the mayor who his original view was that that's all we should put on the flagpole. Because, and my reason for that is, if we have a flag up there, it is official government speech, and not everyone sees a flag as the same speech. And I've seen many instances of it doesn't mean to me what it means to somebody else. Therefore, we are indeterminate in what we're saying as our government speech. Therefore, I think it's very risky to put anything up there other than the three main flags. And if we want to commemorate a group or a certain segment of the population, we could also do that with a proclamation. I know when I was on the council, we would have proclamations, and we would edit proclamations to make sure that the entire council agrees with the speech that is on a proclamation. So I would agree, I'm fine with having a flag policy, but again, I think it's risky, and we have to be very careful. What we are saying is as our official government speech, and that speech, if it's 4-3, we know how divisive even the council can be. Certainly the city can be the same way. I think it's dangerous to put things up other than those particular flags, and if you could write that into the flag policy, I think that would be a good way to go. Thank you.
Mayor Clark. Mayor Clark. We've exceeded our 30 minutes.
Thank you for reminding me. Can I get a motion to extend public comment? There's only a couple more.
I move to extend public comment.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All in favor? Okay, we'll extend additional period of time. Okay, next up, Philip Schmidt-Pathman. Philip?
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, staff. I'm just here briefly to speak for Olympus and the Vineyards. And we just recently were informed that the Easter, well, we don't call it Easter, we call it Egg Hunt now, that the Egg Hunt would have to be canceled, even though it's a tradition. I've been here for nearly 30 years, and ever since I can remember, we've had this, and all of a sudden we're hearing that we're no longer allowed to have this because of some changes that were never there before. And I understand that, you know, things do change, but we already had this planned. We're in the middle of the planning process for this, so I don't think it's appropriate to just call it off. It's a great place for people to meet. And if you consider that the people that used to go there 30 years ago, they now have their own kids, and maybe they're not live right here, but the tradition carries on. They like to come here with their grandparents and families, and it's a really, really nice family event. I mean, specifically for Olympus and the Vineyards, who really make that area there. So I just wanted to ask that you please reconsider and look at ways that this can proceed and continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philip. Next up, Brian Hunsaker. Brian?
Thank you, Council. Thank you, staff, for the chance to speak here tonight, to come before you and talk to you. Thank you for your service to our community. I'm Brian Hunsaker. I live in Lakeview in far west Newcastle. And I'm, just so you know, I'm probably going to leave like right after here because I have to get home with my kids because they're just a little too young to be left by themselves for hours on end. I want to revisit the most recent council meeting and Mayor Clark's outburst during the second comment period. You offhandedly mentioned that perhaps the speaker posts things on social media because they can't help themselves. And I'll admit it, I'm one of those people. I've been critical of you on at least like 5 different social media platforms. But there's a reason for that. It's because when I have an issue and I email you about this conduct, I don't hear back. I understand that this is essentially a volunteer group, but that's a basic constituent service that should be expected of you and every other mayor. You also chose to run for council, chose to accept the result of a vote that made you mayor. So there's responsibilities that come with this position. While email response is a relatively minor quibble, it fits into a pattern of conduct that I feel I have to address. During the most recent council meeting, your upbraiding of a public speaker standing here was dishonest, was out of line, and was unbecoming. You had no right to interrupt public comment. You were out of order, and your outburst has had lasting, real-world effects on the speaker, and you owe her an apology. She or any other person who stands at this lectern deserves to be treated the way you treated her. You're the mayor, you're supposed to be able to take the heat. Let's go back a little further. One meeting prior to that, you were accused of being unprofessional, and you admitted that was true. These are multiple demonstrable issues with your personal conduct as mayor. It's not a partisan issue, okay? I think, Councilmember Griffin, I think if he and I were to sit down at a table, like, we wouldn't agree on very much, but every time in public comment I hear the warmth in his voice when he says, "Thank you all for being here." And I appreciate you for that, thank you. But the truth is, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here public speaking, I suck at this. I'm really nervous and I'm kind of freaking out, but I'm here because I want to trust that the city council is handling city business without my needing to pay attention, and I can't do that right now. If you take a moment to look at the 3 people to your left and the normally 3 people to your right, you'll see a diverse group who serves the city honorably and with civility. So I'm asking Mayor Clark, please do the same. The city deserves a compassionate leader who represents all of us with respect, and if you can't deliver that way, or you can't control yourself, then you should step aside for someone who can. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next up, Sarah Goodman. Sarah.
I have to lower it because I'm so short. Hello, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. My name is Sarah Goodman, and I also live in the Winfield Ridge neighborhood, and I'm here in solidarity with my Winfield Ridge neighbors. I'm here once again to urgently request your support in protecting our Winfield Ridge neighborhood. The requirement of a fire gate as a mitigation for the proposed through street is the only remaining solution to safeguard our community. Without this fire gate, our quiet, family-oriented street will inevitably become a major thoroughfare to I-405, placing our families and especially our children at serious risk. It has been expressed in previous discussions the neighborhoods of Winfield Ridge, Southeast 85th Lane, and White Hawk are united in strong opposition to turning the street into a through street. Most residents of Winfield Ridge chose our home specifically because it was a quiet, dead-end street and an ideal place to raise our families. Our neighborhood has been this way for 20 years, and while we cannot stop the development, we are pleading that the City Council approve and require that the fire gate be installed. Even with the 25-mile-an-hour signs on 116th Avenue, I frequently see cars speeding down the street well over 50 miles an hour, and my car is passed probably 4 or 5 times a week. When I'm going 25, people go around me and speed down the street. The thought of these cars veering onto our street and then raging down the street and going down a hill that will be there scares me to death, because it's just going to take one time till a little kid gets hit riding his bike or somebody gets hit walking their dog because they don't see this car coming out of anywhere. So really the only thing that stands between us and the safety of our children is this fire gate. It's not just a convenience, it's a crucial safety measure that will ensure our children can play outside without fear and that our families are not exposed to unnecessary traffic hazards. I know from attending many of the council meetings that safety is a primary concern of the council, so I ask you to extend that same commitment of safety to our neighborhood. We are counting on you to help ensure the safety of our residents. Our little quiet neighborhood including our cul-de-sac, where we once congregated and spent so many happy hours, my son learned how to ride his bike in our cul-de-sac in his Batman and Robin costumes. And he'd have his, his cape flying behind him. We've sacrificed our cul-de-sac for this new construction. Please don't sacrifice our safety too. And I just would leave you with the question I've asked every time I've spoken. If it was your neighborhood and this was happening to your neighborhood, how would you feel? Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. That concludes our first public comment. Thank you, everybody who commented. A reminder that there is a sheet for a second public comment. If you wish to comment later in the meeting, please sign up on that. Next up, we have ceremonial presentations, of which we have none. So moving on to council comment, we'll start with Councilmember Quigg tonight. Councilmember Quigg.
First out of the gate, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. and Mrs. Fudge, I didn't know anything about the seats or the people not being able to sit down. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I promise you that's never going to happen again if I have anything to say about it. If somebody comes in here just out of surgery and needs a seat, they will get a seat. I don't know how, but we'll make sure that happens. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And in terms of preference for speaking, yeah, if you live in the city, you should get preference for speaking, absolutely. So thank you for those comments. Philip, I understand why you're upset about the egg hunt message. It's a tradition. We showed up. It was something that was going on, and we took it over from the lady there on the end of the seat there. And I hope we can figure this out as well to make sure that tradition lives on in Newcastle, and bring the kids and let them have fun. And then, are you having fun sitting in the front row of a city council meeting? You probably have more fun in an egg hunt. So I hope that we can keep that tradition alive for you guys. And finally, the fire gate. Most of you people are here about the fire gate. Yeah, I don't know what to say on that. We were, I made a motion to do it, and Deputy Mayor Lacotia seconded it, and it went sideways from there. And I hope that we can get plenty of information to you guys, keep you in the loop with all the detail possible. I've seen the city manager emailed you guys some information. I forget your name, but you asked the question, what's it going to cost? We should know that now. How long is the study going to take? We should know that now. How much more taxes are we going to get if, there aren't cars driving? Because it is, after I drop off my kid at Hazelwood or Risden, and I go down that hill, there's not really a lot of houses with kids coming out of them, right? You just fly down that street unless you hit the brakes, and there's pots on the right, and the shirt guard on the left. I can't imagine kids coming out of those driveways. That'd just be, I shudder at the thought. So yes, we need to do everything we can to keep your kids safe. I appreciate you guys showing up, and I'm trusting our staff to do everything they can to work with the developer to take care of your kids. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Welcome to everybody out there. It's great to see you. It's something that we don't see all the time, but it's nice having you here. And I have no response to my being attacked by somebody. I guess I may have made a mistake in getting an A in place of an I, but most of the people, I think, understood what I was trying to tell you, that I believed at the time we don't have a racism, but I think since then I've discovered that, yes, we probably do, and it's right here with us. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Sherlock.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. We've dealt with a lot of contention on this council over the past year. I want to truly thank everyone in our community who have shared their thoughts and their opinions, especially those brave enough to stand at that podium and maybe be a little nervous and speak during public comments, during the public comment period. Everyone has the right to add their voice and their perspective in our government. And I'm really glad that so many people are engaged. But I do want to reiterate what has been said tonight. The public comments are part of protected free speech in this country. And it is our job as elected officials to have thick skin and listen to the public comments, listen without being triggered in the moment. Mayor Clark, you realized and said in the moment at the last meeting when you responded to public comment that you were out of line in responding when you did. I want to be clear, I don't believe any formal reprimand is warranted, but I will ask that you please do a better job of controlling your emotions in the future. As a woman, I am often asked to control my emotions, and I believe it is appropriate to ask the same of everyone on this dais, now and in the future. Thank you.
Councilmember Burford.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming and for speaking up and sharing your thoughts and comments with us. I heard you. I really hope that we will find a positive solution for our tool, neighborhood development. I've heard you. I saw the signs, and so I'm with you. And also, I want to also comment about our council meeting that happened last time. I echo what Council Member Sherlock and also our former Council Member Carol Simpson pointed out. I feel strongly that, Mayor Clark, please be calm and show your respect to all the residents at all time. And I know you are a respectful person, and it seemed like too emotional at the last council meeting. So we ladies, we need to manage our emotion, and everybody, especially we're on death. And also, I'd like to share that spring is here. So our Newcastle fruits and produce just had its grand reopening this last weekend. And also, so I went there, I had a great time. I bought fresh flowers and fruits and delicious fruits and vegetables. Kudos to Dave Franklin and his team for working so hard to serve our Newcastle community and beyond. Please join me and join us, shop local and support our local businesses. And also, I'd like to take this moment, my heartfelt congratulations to the Friends of Newcastle Library for their phenomenal annual book sale. Sales from March 27th to 29th, I shared this flyer at the last council meeting. And so for totaled an impressive amount, far exceeding the $1,500 goal. Thank you all. Thank you, Finals leadership, including President Carol, past President Beatrice, Treasurer Samara, and many more. So due to the time limit, I can't name every individual. So for your dedication and hard work, special thanks to Scouting America, Troop 499, and Girl Scout Troop 46702 for their volunteer efforts. Congratulations again on such a successful book sale, because all the money will go back to our community. Provide all the programs, numerous programs for people from all walks of life, for all ages, for free. So thank you. Also, I want to share my congratulations, my heartfelt congratulations on the successful 7th annual Newcastle Area Youth Art Exhibition, which was showcased at the Newcastle Library throughout March. This vibrant display celebrated the creative talents of local youth, featuring 33 artists from 22 schools. The exhibition drew 350 votes for the People's Choice competition. I really want to thank all the sponsors for their effort and support and hard work. Newcastle Arts Council, King County Library System, our Newcastle Library, and Campus Fine Arts, Friends of Newcastle Library, local businesses and organizations. So these collective efforts promoted the artistic talents of our local youth, making this exhibition a resounding success. And also I want to share briefly, I attended the Lodging History presented by our own Newcastle Historical Society, Michael. Kudos to Michael Intelkofer with his really such rich knowledge about our history, because our identities and our history matter to each and every one of us. So I want to shout out to the collaboration among Newcastle Historical Society and with the Eastside Heritage Center and the Issaquah Alps Trail Club. And also I want to share this heartfelt, my personal experience. Lead with, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and honor the diverse holidays and celebrations recently observed by various ethnic and cultural communities, including Persian New Year and Hindu Festival of Colors, as well as St. Patrick's Day. We also acknowledge that Eid al-Fitr, marking the end of Ramadan, has recently been celebrated by our Muslim community. Additionally, we look forward to upcoming celebrations, including Passover, the Jewish holiday, and Easter, Christian holiday, sending you all heartfelt greetings and warmest wishes, wishing you all and your loved ones a joyous, peaceful, and blessed celebration. Whenever you may observe these special occasions, may they bring you more closer to your heritage, your community, our community, and your loved ones. And I was so touched. I was invited by our Newcastle residents to join their special celebration to their home and to their community. And it's about interfaith. Can you see? We all have our faith, we have our religions. It's an interfaith woman event. I was there. So the vibrant tradition, cultures, and people, beautiful people, and we all from different culture. We had a harmony, we had a happiness, we shared the food. So I hope Newcastle, we move forward, we carry on this legacy and tradition. Thank you so much for all of you. I work for each and every one of you. Happy spring. 谢谢. Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, can you hear us? Do you have anything you want to add tonight? Comments?
Yeah, let me start. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to, revise a few things today. In my years of experience, I've learned certain leadership skills, which I feel is also important that, some of the members of this council is lacking and we need to improve and follow. Here are some. Active listening, the ability to truly hear and understand the concerns of constituents, even when those concerns are expressed emotionally. Out of context replies suggest a failure to listen. Emotional intelligence, understanding and managing one's own emotions. Empathy, the capacity to understand and share the feelings of others. Diplomacy, the ability to handle sensitive situations with tact and consideration. Conflict resolution, effectively managing and resolving disagreements in a constructive manner. Self-regulation, the ability to control impulsive reactions and maintain composure and under pressure, patience, the ability to remain calm and composed in the face of frustration. I think these skills are critical for a leader. Newcastle deserves better leadership. Request to you, Mayor Clark, you need to do a better job. Hoping, what happened last meeting is not repeated again. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, mayor comments. I'll start out by reminding my fellow council members to fill out your financial forms. You should have all had an email in your email for your financial disclosure. Before the meeting, I placed the box in the foyer of the City Hall for collecting the tattered, worn, and faded U.S. flag. So every year I've done that, put the box out there. On the April 19th, my VFW post will be retiring those flags out in Issaquah. So if you want to spread the word, if you have a flag that's tattered, worn, or faded, we will gladly take it and retire it. Just drop it in the box. If you are a neighbor of mine, you know where I live, drop it at my house. That's fine too. So we want to get all that taken care of properly. This is U.S. flags only. We don't do military, state, or other flags. That's on your own. So somebody mentioned, I think it was Councilmember Sherlock, that I should have a thick skin. I'm still waiting to find out that I was responsible that I killed JFK, right? Because I've heard it all from this podium for 3.5 years. I've been accused of everything, and I've taken it all. And I haven't ever responded for 3.5 years, because if the attack is on me, I could care less, right? My God loves me and my wife loves me, and that's all that really matters. And what other people think is not important. So I'm willing to listen, because everybody has the First Amendment right to attack me and say whatever they want. And I've never interrupted before. What happened 2 weeks ago was a little different. And I'm not, first of all, going to apologize. What happened 2 weeks ago was the attack wasn't about me. It was a disrespect for a sacred flag that we fly over the city, the POW MIA flag. Only flag greater is the U.S. flag. Even the state flag flies below that flag. There was a suggestion last week that there was somehow an equal sign between the POW MIA flag and the pride flag. That is not true. It wouldn't matter to me if there was 1 billion LGBTQ people and only a dozen MIAs. The dozen would still be greater than the billion. And that would be true whether it's MAGA or anything else, right? There is a special reason why we hold that flag sacred. The First Amendment is only unique to America. Everybody in America has that right to do what they want legally at their homes, here at the dais, speak what they want to speak. And I've never objected to that. And I will defend, there's a saying that says, I may not like what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And that is true for me, right? I served the military for a long time because I believed in those rights for everybody else. And a lot of people have done the same. So in the last couple of weeks, I have absolutely, and I'm not exaggerating, I've been flooded with emails, texts, voicemails, snail mail, hundreds and hundreds. And it's going to take me forever to respond to them all. My concern, and the reason and of course I didn't yell, of course, but reason I responded the way I did last week or 2 weeks ago is because it's clear to me some people do not appreciate the cost necessary to have that First Amendment. What is the price that has been paid, and why is it unique to America, and why do you still have it? I don't think that sinks in for a lot of people. So I want to read some of the correspondence. It'll only take me a minute of the correspondence that I've received, because I want you to understand, anybody listening tonight, what it means to have a First Amendment and what is the sacrifice that cost. This first letter was from, I'll read it. Mayor Clark, this is just a quick note from a Gold Star mother stuck here in New York who wants to thank you for standing up for our veterans and our fallen and their families. The loss of my son was almost 20 years ago. We will never forget, so I appreciate that you won't either. Army Staff Sergeant Aram Bass, killed in 2005. Will never have a life, will never have a family. He was a Marine and in the Army, right? We need to put names. We need to put names to the cost of the First Amendment. I got a letter from the brother of Gary Booth, killed in Vietnam, still missing. There's hope for him because they found his plane recently, so they're hoping this year that they will find him 54 years later. He went off to war to defend your First Amendment, didn't come home. Maybe he will, God willing. Ralph Lewis Harper, his good buddy, sent me this and said, please remember Ralph. Ralph was lost in Vietnam for 40 years, but he was found in 2008, and now he rests at home. Thank God, right? God bless you, Ralph, right? Roger Hallberg, still missing in Vietnam. He was last seen defending his comrades as they evacuated. They came back to get him, and they couldn't find him, and he's never come home. Roger Hallberg, Special Forces Army. God bless you, Roger. The high school buddy of this guy here, Ross Preston, sent me an email, and he wrote a song for Ross. It's a beautiful song. He sent me the song and said, I think about him every day. He was my best friend. You know, God bless you, Ross. Killed at 21 years old, never going to have a life. But all of you have your First Amendment thanks to him. Lieutenant Thomas Kelly, killed in March 1944 while his bomber exploded in the South Pacific. He's finally coming home, and he's going to be buried next month with his family, thank God, after 81 years, right? There are so many people out there that are never going to come home, right? These are the lucky ones, these families. A lot of the family members are dead, so they don't know that their loved ones are coming home. Before Thomas was killed, shortly before he was killed, he wrote a letter home, and he wrote in part, I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I'm just telling you to appreciate what you have, even if you don't think it is much, because it is so much. The men fighting here for everyone are doing it for your freedom. Shortly thereafter, he was killed. This sticks well to home to me. Veterans are a passion. I have never interrupted a public comment. I don't plan to ever interrupt a public comment. Attack me all you want. But do not disrespect the reason that you have your First Amendment and all the people who have sacrificed. I could go on forever. In fact, one last thing here. You can't really see it from where you're sitting. This is the Military Times. It's called The Fallen. From 2001, from 9/11 till now, 7,000 men and women have never come home, or they've been killed, and they've been buried for our country. You can scroll on this page. There's 111 pages, and each page has 63 names on it. I would suggest and encourage everybody to appreciate your First Amendment, to go to any military site and just find random sites, Vietnam veterans, recent veterans, World War II veterans, and look and read their stories and just say, wow, that for the life, that could have been me, or that could have been my father, or that could have been my brother or sister. So I've taken to heart what my council members say. It is not my habit to interrupt people. And I could really care less what you say about me. It doesn't matter. God loves me, my wife loves me. That's all that matters. But veterans, and if I think there's disrespect, that's a red line for me. I'm sorry. I'm not going to say that I will never do it again. I don't plan to. And I've never had somebody disrespect veterans before, but that's a red line. We have to appreciate why we have our freedoms. And I will never forget that. That's a passion of mine. If I would be doing a lot more for veterans if I wasn't up on this council. There's a lot of things that I've put aside for these 4 years that I plan to get back into after this is over. So please, just say a prayer for these men and women, the ones that never came home, the ones that have sacrificed, the ones that are still serving, and the ones who have served. And I want to thank all the people who have written to me. Thank you. I'm just overwhelmed with your support. I just can't express it well enough. So thank you. All right. Council committees. Councilmember Griffin, do you have Finance Committee?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Yes, we met on March the 26th, and Deputy or Director Chambers, she brought the snapshot and told us that the city's in great shape. We're looking better than we ever expected we would at this time, and we've got money that's out there earning more money. So it was a good report. Thank you, Director Chambers.
Okay, any other council committees?
Yeah,
Councilmember
so
Burford?
yesterday, myself and the Director of Browns and our City Manager, Pingo, we had a meeting with United Hub. So there will be good news to share for our city. And I'm sure our city manager will share something later. Yeah.
So there wasn't, you don't have a council committee report?
Yeah,
No.
just about our city.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Any regional committee reports? Okay. City manager, or excuse me, there are no commission reports tonight. City manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. A couple of things. The legislature's capital budgets came out yesterday. The Senate provides one, the House provides one. And so our Lake Warren Park North End Access Project is funded in the Senate version of the capital budget for $335,000. It's not in the House version, but then the two houses have to reconcile, and we should have a strong probability of being in the final capital budget. And that kind of leads right into what Councilmember Burford was alluding to. Director Bruns and Councilmember Burford and I met with representatives from United Hub. It's a nonprofit that does a lot of various things, but one of the things that they've received recently is a grant to install EV chargers, and they were looking for an additional site. And so we talked about the possibility of installing those at Lake Warren Park main parking lot, which was part of the North End Access Project, as far as some of the money that we were requesting from the legislature. And so it was an initial meeting. We'll start working through the process of what that looks like as far as that possibility, but it's possible that we'll be able to get those EVs installed without the city have to expending funds on that part of the project. And so we'll continue to keep you updated on that, but that's also something that will strengthen our probability of being able to get the North End Access Project funded in the capital budget from the state. Any questions on that before I move on? Okay. I'm happy to address the special event permit egg hunt issue. I did let the Vineyards HOA know what that event has turned into would be considered a special event. And part of bringing that information back to the council at the March 4th meeting was to kind of present where we're at, but also we recommended that we not move forward with the special event permit simply because of our staffing level and where we're at. Also just the logistics of Lake Warren Park and where the egg hunt has become something that is 500 people plus. That was something that our insurance provider said that is a special event that the city should not allow. I do think that I don't know Dee's last name, but Dee from the HOA board, I think she's your secretary. She responded and I gave her options for moving forward, both this year as well as in future years. And so I do think that that's possible. It just can't be the free-for-all that it's kind of been, and we'll have to figure that out. Happy to take questions about that.
So is the event canceled or not canceled?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I thought I heard it was canceled.
So my understanding was, so the options that I provided to Dee were, ideally, they'll rent the shelters at Lake Warren Park. That's a process that we already have in place. There's nothing wrong with the Vineyards and Olympus HOAs participating in that. The challenge comes in the open invite. And so asking them to not have the open invite to the whole community. And then second option is we can try to establish an agreement for this year. But part of that agreement that I think, I don't know what the HOA's internal discussions were. Dee indicated that renting the shelters was the best way to go for this year. We could establish an agreement, but part of that is that the HOA, the hosting HOA, would need to take on the risk for the event. And then the third option, which would be a moving forward option, not necessarily a this year option, is to get it on the Community Activities Commission's radar. We do have events where the city isn't the main driver, isn't the one putting on the event, but is supporting the event, and that's we can see if that's a possibility moving forward. But that should be run through the appropriate channels, which would be starting with the Community Activities Commission.
Fortunately, the people that are most involved with this issue are in the room. A couple years ago, Lynn Prevet's replacement, Nathan Sticks, took over the Olympus HOA board. And all on go, he came up to me and said, "Quig, we're done. We're not hosting this thing anymore. Do you guys want to take it over?" I said, "Hell yeah, let's do it." And so we took it over, and yeah, as is often the case when I get involved, it went big. It, just like when Tony said you want to do Christmas tree lighting, it went from a little neighborhood thing to, cars parked all the way down to the commons. Yeah, it's gotten really, really, really big. And the reason this guy came to speak, who's also on the board, was because we just don't want it to die. It shouldn't die. This is not about, and I literally have handed off the baton. I said, I'm not going on the stage. Somebody else has got to go up there. This is not about a Jim Quigg, a rah-rah show. This is about the kids having an Easter egg hunt and getting chocolates with their neighbors. So when the email came, you're shut down, we got to do better, right? It should be, hey, I know Quigg's involved with this. I'm going to call, I got your cell number. Just give me a call and say, hey, we got to make this figured out. We're worried about insurance, parking, policies, how can we make this work? And that's, I think that's what we have to do, is just make sure, like on these people here with the Firegate issue, let's just work together on these issues. What you said is absolutely right, City Manager Pingle. We can make this work out. The solution is going to be the HOA is going to fork out hundreds of dollars to rent the shelters and, pay the bill to make sure it doesn't get canceled. So that's how we solve the problem this year. Going forward, I'm hoping that we can work together to make sure that events like this don't get shut down for staffing concerns or insurance concerns or lack of interest in, finding a third solution. I know we can find a solution for this. You're right, it's gotten very big. My wife said, did you see the Facebook post? People are asking about it. I haven't posted anything. Nobody's posted anything about it. So we're being very careful to follow the guidelines you've given us. But I'm hoping we can go back in future years to having it be something the whole community's part of, because you're right, Son was there, I think Ari might have been there, Paul was there, everybody shows up, the chief was there, Mayor Newing was there. It's a really, really, really fun, it's gotten to be a big event, just like the Christmas tree thing, just like the softball thing. Tony didn't want me to call it the Tony Ventrola softball tournament, now it's the Tony Ventrola softball tournament. We're gonna have some big, big city events. And so going forward, I want to make sure we work together, not to squash those events, but to figure out how we up here can highlight them and invite our neighbors and get people to come, out of the apartments. It's hard to get people to come out of the apartments. We actually had kids that I'd never met before, coming out, and they're so excited because they got the little Easter bunny costumes and all that kind of stuff. So I hope we can keep this going strong, and I appreciate your hard work, City Manager Pingle.
If I could, I'd like to add that there's nothing, so from what I understand, the city removed the special event option in our code in 1999. So this is standing since then. The Easter egg hunt, what I believe has happened in the neighborhood, in your neighborhoods, correct? From way back until about 2022 or 2023, is that correct?
It's been going on for what, 30 years, Lynn?
Yeah, in the
About 30
neighborhood.
years.
When did it, but it transferred to Lake Bourne Park in
About 4 years ago, I think.
22 or 23.
Something like that, yeah. 3 years ago.
And so there's nothing stopping the HOA from continuing that event in their capacity in which they've done for several decades, from what I understand. It's the bringing hundreds of people into our park that was the concern, and that was the rub. Not that the city can't stop you from having your event just as you have had for decades. So that is, feel free to keep going with that. We're not going to stop that. Also, I just wanted to add a little tidbit onto what City Manager Pingle said. about the shelter rentals is that in my March 4th agenda bill, I did note that there is a 50-person limit per shelter rental, and that is something that stands for all shelter rentals, not just the egg hunt. So I just wanted to be aware that when it says you can rent them, that doesn't mean that you can rent them and bring 600 people. There is a per person limit on the shelter rentals, and that is not solely for the egg hunt. That is for all people who rent our shelters. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Any other questions for the city manager? Deputy
Yes.
Mayor, you have any questions? Oh, hold on. Go ahead, Councilmember Quigg.
Can you address the questions about the fire gate, please, in terms of updates? We have a room full of people here that are looking for details. I know you sent some emails with some information, but can you provide a little more detail? You can talk to me if you want to make it easy. Just in terms of how things are going. When last we were here discussing it, I made a motion to put in the fire gate, which as near as I can tell is a win for everybody, not a compromise. We get more tax revenue off of houses that are more valuable. Developer saves money on an unnecessary traffic plan that we all know is going to show that Google shows people to go to the shortcut. So we weren't able to do it because it wasn't on the agenda the right way, as near as I can recall. And now these people are hoping that we can get some detail. Can you give them a little detail on how things are going with the developer doing what it sounds like would make them more money and save them money?
So we did meet with the developer. Their initial reaction was that they were not in favor of installing a gate. They were concerned that we were pressing them. As we discussed previously, we had to make sure they understood that we're going to get into a legal issue if they are feeling like we're pressing them. Their initial reaction was, no, we're going to do what we're planning on doing. As we spoke with them, it became very clear that they're not thinking about the condition of approval for the traffic monitoring plan the same way we are. And so we talked through that a little bit, and we're not coming to agreement. So we said, hey, let us send you some information that we just provided the city council, and then we'll come back to it and make sure that there's some understanding about what their obligations are.
Isn't there obligation to pay what we tell them to pay? As I recall, the hearing examiner said that Mr. Director Bronze or the Public Works Department will set the proportionate cost for the study and the proportionate cost for the traffic response.
Right, but that has to be based on something.
Sure, okay. And so
it can't just be pulled out of thin air of, oh, hey, you're going to pay 90% of this and the city will pay 10. It has to be based on something. So, for example, we have current traffic counts, and we have what traffic counts from those 11 homes will be added to, at least on an average basis. That's a way we can go, but that can be worked out. Our main concern was, hey, we need to make sure that you're understanding that you're going to have some costs and obligations involved in this thing, and we want to see if that changes their stance on the gate.
So this is perfect. I appreciate the detail. They want to put in a bunch of houses and make millions of dollars. The original, I'm not even going to go back to history. Today, the hearing examiner says, look, I want a traffic study and make sure that we have traffic calming measures. If this traffic study is going to cost more than the gate, do we know that? We've been at this for weeks. Do we know which is going to cost more just in general? Overall, is it twice as much? Is it half as much?
So it's not just this traffic study versus a gate. It's the traffic study, and I don't think that we think a traffic study is going to cost more than a gate. A traffic study plus potential traffic calming measures based on the data from that traffic study from the monitoring plan may cost more than a gate, or may include installing a gate. And so
how do we not know yet which is going to cost more? I mean, how many more weeks do we need to know the numbers?
Because we won't do the monitoring. The developer will do the monitoring.
No, but the cost to do monitoring over, it said 3 to 4 years versus the cost to install the gate, of which there are thousands across America.
Yes.
What would be the cost difference?
So a gate's going to cost $20,000 or $25,000. A monitoring plan is unlikely to cost that much, but a monitoring plan plus potential improvements may. I think the developer is banking on that it's not going to, and they expressed other issues with asking them to install a gate. But like I said, we don't think they were looking at the monitoring plan requirement the same way we were, and so we want to make sure that they're understanding that they're going to have some skin in the game on this.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Okay, any other questions for the city manager? Okay. Seeing none, then we are moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any objections or desired changes to the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull 8.3, 8.4, and 8.5 off the consent agenda regarding the facilities use policy, the tree maintenance services, and the pavement overlay program.
Okay. All right, let's show that item 8.3 will now become general business 11.3. 8.4 will now become general business 11.4. And 8.5 will become general business 11.5. Any objections to the consent agenda as modified? Okay, so the consent agenda approved as modified. There are no public hearings tonight. There is no unfinished business on our calendar. The first item up tonight is item 11.1, general business, the discussion of the strategic plan. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to be fairly brief as far as my explanation and leave it to the council. We've had this in front of us at least in front of the council for a couple of years. Essentially, what we put together was we tried to put a plan together that would be more of a living document. As we complete things, they come off. Things we do all the time, we have in front of us. And then the projects that we're budgeting for, we have a priority order for what we're doing. And so this is simply updated primarily with the things that we budgeted to do this year, or at least that we're going after this year. The main changes are in Goal B, as well as Goal F with our capital projects. One thing I want to point out as far as what's there is earlier in the year, the City Council rescinded a resolution to do the Newcastle Way widening design. I left that as a priority one simply because we rescinded that resolution, but it's still on for this year in the Transportation Improvement Plan, which we'll address in June. And just wanted to point that out as far as, hey, if we want to change the priority of that or do something different with it. I left it there simply because it's still in the budget and we haven't necessarily said we're not doing it this year. We just weren't doing it in January, February. And I'll take any questions or leave it to the council's discussion.
Okay, so before you say anything, Councilmember Quigg, I suggest as a council that we just go by goal and discuss, like Goal A, we can discuss Goal B, then go. Any objections to that? I mean, try to be efficient. General question, go ahead.
I don't know if I call it an objection, but in the planning commission, we'd always seem to talk about minuscule stuff, and then we get to the big issues, and there's not enough time. He just raised an issue, which is the one darn thing I circled on this whole, was the thing you mentioned, Scott. I'm sorry, City Manager Pingle. So can we talk about that first and then get to the other stuff that people probably don't care as much about? I mean, the only thing I circled was the one thing he thought we'd want to discuss. So I suggest we talk about that and then follow the Mayor Clark approach, which is to go through the other items.
So what goal is that under?
It's on page 41 of 61. It says complete Newcastle Way widening design T058.
That Goal B, what is that?
It's under Goal B as in Bravo.
Okay, we're going to start with Goal B then. All right, Councilmember Quigg, go ahead. What did you
Well,
want to do?
literally, it's what I circled. I said, do we still want this as a priority one item when we canceled the design project for it? Because I don't know that it's a priority one item if it's not going to get the 11 or 10 or $13 million it needs. So I don't know. Do we want to change the priority on it is what I'm asking.
Councilmember Sherlock.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Yeah, I was going to bring this up as well. I mean, I think just to be consistent, since this council did vote to not move forward with that design, part for this year, it makes sense to me to change that to a 2, just to be consistent with what we've decided in the past.
I agree with that. Any objections to changing from a 1 to a 2?
Yeah, I'd like to make it a priority 4. I don't think it's necessary.
Priority 4s are ongoing repetitive things, so we could go 1, 2, or 3.
Then I would go 3.
Okay?
I think it should be a 2. We're gonna discuss this in length when we talk about the CIP, the capital improvement plan, and that's when we can
Okay, so,
talk about that.
okay, so it's pretty clear what we want to try to do here. All in favor of a 2, raise your hand. We're going to do raise your hand. Make it a 3, raise your hand. Okay. Make it a 2. Oh, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor, I didn't see you there. What, you 2 or 3 on you? 3. Oh, okay.
Stays a 1 then. I'm just kidding.
All right. Move it to a 3 for now. I'll change my vote, right? Leave it, and we can discuss it when we discuss capital. Okay, City Manager?
Yep.
We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. Okay, it's a 3. Any other items in Goal B that somebody wants to discuss? Goal B. So I will just ask City Manager, all the ones we have labeled a 1, other than the one we just talked about, are still okay, current?
Right.
Right, okay. Okay, we're going to go back to Goal A. All right, the only one on there is review real property assets, where I assume is that still ongoing, City Manager?
That is. So the main thing going with that is something that the Economic and Community Development Committee will take on. We compiled the property that the city owns in the city that is, nothing's happening with it, and looking at potential for either selling it or developing it or whatever. Really, what they'll consider is the parcel near Lake Warren Park, and how best to utilize it or sell it or whatever. That's something that the Economic and Community Development Committee is going to take on.
Fair enough. Any other items anybody would like to add to Goal A?
I don't know if we need to add it, but Director Chambers has done a fantastic job of keeping us out of bankruptcy out as a city, and she's also got this long-term investment idea. Do we need that to be an objective for her to, because she's mentioned she might not have the staffing, might not have the focus, remember the conversations we had on the, okay, I'll stop talking, City Manager. What do you think about that?
And
Does that
Director
need to be on
Chambers
here?
can certainly chime in. So the way that she's proposed going to the Finance Committee and adding the separately managed accounts to the purchasing policies, or to the financial policies, was simply because that's the way that allows us to tackle that with our current staffing level. That's certainly something that we can throw on there if we want to be able to check it off as something we completed this year. It's something that has been on Director Chambers' goals, but it's really up to the council if we want to. That's something that we anticipate completing in a month or 2. And so, we can throw it on there so that we can check it off later, but I don't know that it needs to be thrown on the strategic plan.
I don't know if I'd say throwing on. I mean, the Quake family, we worry about my salary, my wife's salary, the Safeway budget, and we look like a laser beam constantly at what our investments are doing. And as near as I can tell, this city for years and years before that amazing, smart, marvelous woman showed up, wasn't getting any interest on all the money we have put away, or very, very minor interest. And she shows up, and all of a sudden we're not throwing money out the door constantly, having it sit in an account that's not, so I'm just saying, whatever she needs in terms of directions, strategies, priorities, staffing, I want to give her everything she needs, because she will pay herself over and over and over again by putting the money in investment-bearing accounts instead of sitting in these, 0.1% accounts. So I just think it's worth a priority.
Go ahead, Director Chambers.
Thank you. I would just suggest, if this is a priority for council, I would put it in as a priority 4, because this is something that we would want to continue on an ongoing basis. It wouldn't be a one-time thing. We would still, even with, if we choose to go the separately managed accounts, it would still be something we need to be monitoring year over year.
Okay, that sounds good. Any objections to making it a number 4? All right, City Manager, put that a 4. Yep. Moving on to Goal C, maintaining a safe community. We have 2 number 1s and a 3. Any desired changes there? City manager, are we still on track for the number ones?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion? Goal C, Councilmember Sherlock?
Just that, I know Councilmember Charbonneau isn't here tonight, but he's expressed in the past, wondering if we can get the, consider options for addressing mental health crisis with regional and neighboring entities moved up to a 2. I can't really speak to it. I just know that he's brought that up in the past, and just wonder if anyone else has thoughts on that. I would support that.
It is one of our legislative priorities, correct. So any objection to moving from a 3 to a 2? No objection, move that to a 2.
Yes, great.
Okay. All right, goal D, community engagement. City manager, where we at? This is the biannual community survey, correct?
Right. I put it as a priority 1 simply because the timeline for it will be, we would anticipate putting it in front of the Finance Committee towards the end of the year for a January 2026 execution. And so, on off years, we kind of leave it in as a priority 4, but then the year that we're going to do it, I put it as a priority 1.
Okay. Questions or additions for this goal? Go ahead, Councilman.
This kind of dovetails nicely off of what those two said about the lady that couldn't sit down because the room was full of people from outside. If that's part of goal D, community engagement, we need to make sure that if people take time to leave their families to drive down here and sit down and speak to us and they live here, we should make sure that they can A, find a seat, and B, get to speak first. So I don't know how we put that in here, but is that appropriate to put in here, or just make sure that's a priority 1 item to where we're addressing facilities use, but maybe we should address seat use during public comments in terms of community engagement?
Well, that is a discussion we should have, and we got feedback, and I agree with the public speakers, and, it is.
We can knock it out quickly, I'm guessing, right?
But I don't know necessarily we need to make it an objective. City manager, what do you?
Really, it's up to the council. I think executing something would be amending council rules. And so.
I can't imagine that is critical, right? To make sure that people who want to speak to us get a chance to speak to us. So for me, putting it as, we have update and implement public engagement strategy, ensuring it's achievable and balances traditional and digital media. So we got that in there, but we can't make sure if somebody shows up and hardly walked and gets a seat. I think we should have something to address a concern that has come up a couple times in meetings that I've been a part of. Lucky me, they've been really busy, contentious meetings, but I think that, I don't know if that you just want to add something, between these 2 items, but it's clearly something they're asking, and fortunately for them, it's something we're addressing right now.
I would recommend to the council that, when we're going to talk about the planning calendar, that we add an item to discuss policy rather than, making an overarching goal, right? We'll just have an upcoming policy discussion on what the concerns are.
Yep, great.
Okay. Any other issues or questions on goal D? Anybody? Okay, goal E, creating a livable community. Okay, we had pandemic relief plan. I think we can take that off, right?
Thank goodness.
We already allocated the funds.
Right. And so it's simply left on there because we have funds allocated in 2025 and funds allocated in 2026.
Okay.
And so happy to take it off, but it's still, those funds are still ongoing and being implemented.
Okay, we'll leave it then. Go ahead.
Should I see my microphone on? I'm going to talk to you, Director Fitzgibbons. Hello. When I first joined the council, one of the things I mentioned that I was doing on the Planning Commission was trying to make sure this is a beautiful city. That when I drive from Victoria into Newcastle, I look to the left and I see, the beautiful stores and Mod Pizza. And to the right, I see a godforsaken old sign for the Del Mar neighborhood and the big ugly cement blocks and all that kind of stuff. And as you drive along, there's a sign for massage for $45, another sign for Christmas tree lights that's been there for 4 months. And is there any, and you mentioned, well, we have public works people that pick those up as they go along. And I'm still seeing them all over the place. So I'm wondering, does that need to be on this piece of paper under a livable, aesthetically pleasing community that it shouldn't take, or just, just free up these people to do it when they're driving around. If you see a massages, $45 sign or a Christmas tree lights, sign in March, feel free to get rid of it. That is not aesthetically pleasing, as they say. How can we add that in here somehow?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but we already don't allow those signs. They just need to be picked up.
I'm just saying
Correct.
it's not
City
happening.
manager,
So it depends on where they're located. I'll let
I thought in
Director
the
Fitzgibbon
downtown
speak to
core
it.
there were.
But we also have to be aware of freedom of speech issues with it.
We do have a sign policy. What is our, Director Fitzgibbons, what is your thoughts?
Well, I'm not sure. Sorry.
Got you off guard, sorry.
I think just about signs in general, property owners can always remove signs. So, I mean, that's an outreach that could happen, is also encouraging property owners to maintain their properties. As we know, we're a lean staff. But in addition to that, the staff do know that they can remove those signs, and it's probably time to do another sweep, I'll admit. But when talking about a beautification type goal, I mean, that sounds to me like an overarching goal than an objective. So I guess on E, what would the objective be? Is it, do you want signs swept? Do you want?
Yeah, just get rid of the signs. I mean, if somebody has a sign in front of their yard that says, I voted for so-and-so, that's politically protected speech. Don't touch that, that's their right to do so. If we have a sign when I'm driving down Newcastle Way, like, I don't know, in front of the fire station, or, in that little middle area that's clearly not private property, and again, those massages, whoever's putting out this massages $45 sign, I'm gonna hire that guy. He's an amazing promoter. They're everywhere. And the Christmas installation signs, they're everywhere. And frankly, I know the guy that puts the Newcastle baseball signs up. Cal's fabulous. But once they've been up there for a long time, or once Christmas has passed, or, I just don't think they should sit up there forever and ever. And I just feel like that's a simple little thing that would make this city much more beautiful.
So I would suggest that we already have a policy for that, right? That's something that, we can do based on our code, right? So I wouldn't necessarily, unless everybody else disagrees, would want to create a whole objective for pulling down signs. Any thoughts, anybody else? No. Okay. Go ahead.
I do think it says goal E is create a livable community that is aesthetically pleasing, affordable, and inviting with the private. I feel like that, like Director Fitzgibbon said, that captures that here. And the policy, that's not what, this document is not that. It's not about enforcing policies, it's about strategic goals and objectives.
Fair point. Okay, I guess I would just beg again, have the crew. I know that if there's 51 people under that shelter for the Easter egg hunt, somebody's gonna show up and shut it down. So if we have time to shut down the Easter egg hunt, we should have time to pull up the sign for a massage.
I'm sure the staff will put that on their list to do. Okay, goal F. All right, city manager, how are we doing on, these are some of our legislative priorities.
Yep, we're on track on all the priority ones. One of the ones I will mention is just the regional park development at 95th. I put in my Friday update to the council that we met with a soccer club. And all that is kind of introductory. We're in the mode of trying to resurrect this project from what it had been years ago. We have drawings. We're just looking at the possibility of public-private partnerships, potentially for help in building it and help in running it once it's built. And so we're just looking at those possibilities.
Okay, and so we'll leave everything as is unless there's any questions? No? Any additions anybody wants to add? Nope, okay. Seeing none, we are moving on. There's no action needed. We already took all our action, gave direction to the city manager. So now we're moving on to item 11.2, flag policy. City manager, go ahead and start us off.
Thank you, Mayor. So just with some of the contentious discussions we've had over flags over the last almost year. We really the flag policy that we were basing kind of our thoughts on was the FirCrest policy, simply because both myself and the city clerk worked on that policy in FirCrest. And so it's basic, it's straightforward. We wanted to provide additional policies just so you can see other policies that cities have around. That doesn't necessarily have to be a Washington-based issue. But our desire is simply to put guardrails around raising flags. A lot of rhetoric has been talked through as far as we raise one flag, we got to raise all the flags. We want to make sure a few things are very clear in a flag policy. And so we simply want to, anything that's not a required flag. So we're required to fly the American flag, we're required to fly the state flag, and on 10 specific days a year, we're required to put up the POW/MIA flag. Any other flag would be a commemorative flag. We think that that definition is important. It's simple and maybe a no-brainer, but that's an important distinction. And so in order to, we want to make sure a policy states and is clear that anything that the city decides to put on their flagpole is government speech and not a forum for free, not a public forum for free speech. That gets rid of the issue around if we raise somebody's flag, we have to raise everybody's flag. And the way that we execute that is by any flag that we might raise would have to be, the request has to come from a sitting city council member. So that when the council either accepts or rejects that request, it's coming from the city council making government speech. And then just to ensure that, just to be deliberate and put a process around it, we recommend that if there's a desire to raise some other flag, that it goes through our process. We have a planning calendar. We have an agenda review committee that puts things on an agenda. We think it should be deliberate. And so if we want to raise a commemorative flag, we're putting it on the planning calendar. We're getting that put on a specific agenda so that everybody knows we're going to vote on raising this flag at this meeting. And that's it. As far as staff's recommendation, we recommend that we try to keep it simple with those guardrails.
And I think you told me earlier that the FirCrest policy has been vetted by our attorney, and it would pass muster, right?
Yes, we threw it at Curtis, and he
threw it back.
Said I like.
I think it's a good policy. It's simple, and it does what it needs to do to ensure that it's government speech.
Discussion, anybody? Councilmember Sherlock?
I'll just say that that one stood out to me just because it's simple, to the point, kind of addresses everything that that was in the agenda bill that seems to need addressing. So it doesn't have to be verbatim, but I would support something very similar to the FirCrest flag policy.
Okay, is there, we'd like to just get this settled, so is there a specific thing in there you'd like to change, or are you okay with the whole thing?
I'm fine with it, I just,
Change the name to Newcastle.
Right, and if there's any updated, I don't know, it seemed fine, but I don't know if there's anything the staff would recommend to make it more, to make it for Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it'll be word for word. I think that, I don't know, between Director Westman and myself, maybe we'd word things better, but it'll say the same thing.
Okay, so any other?
Maybe I'll just add the way that the FirCrest policy came together was very specific to that council's discussion. There was a lot of things that weren't in an original draft that then they were like, hey, what about this or what about that? I don't like this. And so it was very specific to that council's discussion. And so if there are things, or if there's anything that the council wants to discuss or thinks that's specific to Newcastle that wouldn't necessarily be specific to FirCrest, happy to take those. Beyond that, we'll make sure it's Newcastle's.
Any other questions or discussions on this item? Anybody want to make a motion? Their potential motion, yes.
Yeah, unless there's,
would
we're
you-
happy to take direction by consensus
Okay,
unless there's opposition.
all right. So I think the consensus is to take the FERC policy, change the name to Newcastle,
And bring it back.
bring it back. If there's any, any objections to that? Seeing none, there you go. Okay. So we are now going to have a new item, 11.3, which was previously item 8.3. Councilmember Quigg, you wanted to talk about this. What's on your mind?
Here's my question for you, city manager. This says it applies to conference rooms, chambers, and parking lots. Could this end up applying to other places? Is this the kind of thing that would apply to parks and stuff?
So this specific policy isn't necessarily intended that way. I do think that we can explore, we have, spaces in parks and stuff like that, but that's not what this was intended for. So we had a facility use policy previously
Yeah.
that was very specific to the old city hall across the street over here. And so we just wanted to update that with some of the requests we've received for this building and use of the parking lot. And so that was basically taking the facility use policy that we had and then updating it and make it specific to this building.
That's just what I was hoping you'd say. Here, let me tell you why I'm asking. Having organized tons of events in this city, some of this stuff scares the snot out of me. No homemade items may be served when I got moms and dads bringing Rice Krispie treats and, hey, I got fudge and hey, I got cookies. So that just would be really, really tough to organize some of the things I've done where you basically have no budget, but everybody says, yeah, I'll bring something. And, we'll meet you at Lake Bourne Park and we throw something for a baseball team or an event or something like that. And so this would be hard to implement with my experience. So like the thing, all decorations must be approved when somebody finds, yellow and red flags at their garage and pulls them at the last second. Oh, the city manager didn't approve it 2 weeks in advance. So this would be really, I'm just begging you, please promise me. This is okay, I guess, for for this facility, but if we try to implement it at one of the Donegal or Lake Bourne Park events, it'd just be unworkable because with PTA moms and, volunteers, it kind of all happens at the last second often, and have to run things through you, it wouldn't be workable. So I'm begging you to promise me this isn't going to become like park policy in a couple months?
No, this is specific to this building
Thank
and
you.
property.
Perfect, thank you, that's all I was looking for, sir. I'm good with it now, Mayor.
Okay, so I need a motion now because it's been pulled a separate item. We need a motion to pass this, please.
I move to implement the updated City of Newcastle facility use policy.
There's an actual recommended motion.
I can paint by the numbers. Where'd you write it down, Jane? There we go, page 16. I move to adopt resolution 2025-1032, rescinding resolution number 200-217, amending resolution 2024-972, and adopting the revised facilities use policy.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hope not. Okay. All right, move to adopt resolution 2025-1032, rescinding resolution 2017, amending resolution 2024-972, and adopting a revised facility use policy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 6-0. Okay, moving on, next item. Previously was item 8.4, now is 11.4, contract tree maintenance services. Again, Councilmember Quigg.
Fellow Director Bronze. My question is this, it says, since 2018, nearly all tree maintenance work has been performed by P&D. And then on the next item, which we're going to discuss in 5 minutes, it talks about this other company was the lowest and most responsible bidder. So I'm just wondering, we in our neighborhood, we can't spend a dime without sending it out to multiple bids, Director Bonds. I know we do a lot of tree maintenance work in this city, and 2018 was a long time ago. Is it worth looking to rebid the work, or do you, I know they're doing reliable, good service, and you could probably call them, you got them on, speed dial to get a quick response, especially with the bomb cyclone thing we experienced. I'm just wondering, do you think we could look into competitive bidding to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck?
Yes, we could do that. It's just one of the things that, so you would bid that per hour or something like that. It's because each one's different. You can't pay per tree or something like that. P&D's worked well. We've used other companies in the past and they've turned down jobs. They say that's too risky for us. So that's one of the main reasons we keep using them, is they do pretty much anything we ask them to do. Their prices are in line with other work. So that's the answer to the question.
I'm sure. I guess I'm gonna have to vote for this additional money that we need $107,500 extra.
No, that's not correct.
Oh, no, okay, sorry. We'll get into that later, I guess. Whatever this is to approve in terms of the contract amendment that we're doing, this is a lot of money is all I'm saying. It's a lot of money for my HOA, and it's a lot of money, I'm guessing, for the city. And since 2018 was a long time ago,
The contract's not been going that long. That's just how long they've been doing the work, in addition to P&D, or excuse me, in addition to JB Tree, which we don't use anymore.
So we've sole sourced it?
So I'm sorry, just to cut this thing short, yes, we can rebid it out at the end of their contract, which is 2025.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way, my team does it. I just suggest having, they try a little harder, the price are a little bit better if you have one gas station across the street from the other gas station. I think I think rebidding it would be make sure that I know that they answer when you call, but just to make sure that we're spending the dollars wisely, it might be worth just rebidding it.
Certainly, I just wanted to point, and we'll do that, just to point out that the concern is that we'll bid someone, then they'll come out, they'll win the job, and they'll come out and they won't do the work because it's too risky or they're not wanting to do
Sure.
that. So we need to have a backup plan.
Always.
Any other discussion on this item? Anybody? Okay. Again, I'll need an amendment or a motion, please.
I move to adopt Resolution 2025-1033, approving a contract amendment with P&D Logging and Tree Service as presented.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 2025-1033, approving a contract amendment with P&D Logging and Tree Services as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Deputy Mayor, I didn't hear what you said.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. There's a delay there, sorry. Okay, so a 6-0 approved, okay. Next up was item 8.5 is now item 11.5. Councilmember Quigg.
This is for the pavement overlay program 10-011. It looks like there were 3 change orders that added about $500,000 to the cost. I might be wrong, but can you just kind of help me understand I don't know if you recall what the change orders were for or why they needed the extra money to get the job done? It says with 3 approved change orders, the final construction cost was actually $1.7 million over, went over budget.
I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. What was the
The approved change orders.
The room changers were $59,000.
$59,000?
Yes.
And so the $500 represents the, that was the money that wasn't covered by the grants, is that right?
Just a minute, please.
Okay.
The original contract amount was $1.6 million, $235.00. 3 approved change orders. The final construction cost was $1,659,326.03. So the net difference of essentially $59,100.
So the change order is for the $59,000?
Correct.
Got it, okay, cool. You don't recall what those were?
Yes, so every construction project, it's an estimated number of quantities. In particular, this one, there was more utility adjustments. So let's say the original contract said 30 valve replacements and we had 65. So that's what it is right there.
Thank you, that's all, that's what I was just wondering about. That explains it, thank you.
Any other discussion? A motion, please.
I move to accept the 2024 Newcastle Pavement Overlay Program T11 as complete.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved to accept the 2024 Newcastle Pavement Overlay Program as complete. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved 6-0. Okay, that concludes our general business, and moving on to additional public comment. So like before, if you would like to make a comment, I'll call you up to the podium, and you'll have 3 minutes to talk about whatever issue you'd like to talk about, and when the buzzer sounds, we ask you to wrap it up. First up, Kathleen Fudge. Okay, we'll skip her, we'll come back. Sarah Goodman.
Hello. I just wanted to thank Councilmember Quigg and City Manager Bingle for the discussion around the fire gate. And I know we've talked about it ad nauseum, so I appreciate your patience with me. But along the lines of, when you hear 3 to 4 years for a study, that's a lot of years, and that's a lot of opportunities for something to happen to a child. So I know you guys are painfully aware, and I know you keep hearing us out, but if there's anything we can do to mitigate and, pull the time frame in. And I loved the idea that you guys all had last meeting we were at, where you just said, hey, why don't we just do the fire gate? I personally think that mitigations like speed bumps are not productive. They don't do anything. In fact, the people who drive too fast think of them as opportunities to fly in their car. So just weighing in on the fact that, and I get that the builder has a plan and you guys are working with them to see if you could change the plan, but just want to weigh in on that, because I really feel like they're gonna spend a bunch of money on a plan. And also to add in there, last time we were here, somebody commented, the plans often come up just a little short. Oh, we're just one car short of what you guys need to get the fire gate, right? And let's keep in mind too, that the new development that's gone in, the houses that are going up, I don't know if folks drive by, the 52 houses, that's another 104 cars that will be coming down 114th and going straight down that hill if that hill becomes a through street, right? So, but they may not be coming down our street. So I just think there's our little neighborhood, and I've said this in my emails and stuff, we're experiencing a lot of growth, and I feel like our little neighborhood's in the eye of the storm. And so anyway, just anything we can do to work on that, because 3 to 4 years, somebody could get hit on their bike by a car coming around the corner long before it gets to a speed bump. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Come back to Kathy Fudge. Kathy?
Hold on, sorry. I apologize for stepping out. I want to say a couple things. First, Councilman Quigg, I want to thank you for understanding how we felt when this woman had to leave the meeting because she didn't have a seat. This evening, and I think I've said this before, we had a person that took 15 chairs and put books on them. And that woman is no longer here. I had asked if she was a Newcastle resident. She asked me who my name was. She didn't really answer me, but kind of roundabout made me feel like she was a Newcastle resident, but I don't believe that she was. When she was questioned again, she moved her books after a little bit of a, not really confrontation, but some questions. She moved her books to the back, and she's no longer here. And either are the 15 people I believe that she was holding the seats for. I want the council to understand that you were voted in by the city residents, the city of Newcastle residents. And I really want you all to understand, I don't know where the camera is, I'm sorry, Councilman, and I don't even know how to say her last name, but Deputy Mayor, I'm sorry. I really want you to understand that you work for us, okay? We elected you as residents. I don't want you to be swayed by opinions or speeches, and I'm not a public speaker, as you can tell. I get very nervous up here. But I want you to understand that we count on you for this. I, again, stood at the wall and was not happy about it. My knee was not happy about it, but I did it because I wanted to be here to speak. Again, I thank you for giving your time, and the city manager too, for giving up, all of you for giving up your time to do this. But I also want you to remember, you work for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Brad Corner. Brad, come on up.
Brad Corner, Reserve, Newcastle. I want to thank all of you for a very civil meeting tonight. And I noticed I've heard from a lot of great neighbors very clearly. After what happened at the last council meeting, I did not get to speak, even though I was signed in. I physically got sick after an hour and a half of testimony. I'm sad to say that, because things were not civil. So I hope going forward we can all be more civil. But I do want to compliment Mayor Clark for speaking for people, including my relatives, that are not here to speak today. And I take that very near and dear to my heart when I look at that flag. I don't agree with the flag policy. I believe it should only be the government flags, those that are approved as government speech. Albeit, it sounds like you're going in a different direction. So be it. What I would like to hear more when there's land use, like 2 weeks ago, is more about the road project. And my suggestion is, if it becomes necessary, that we have the whole council go and look at that road and that gate, so you can feel and see what they're going through. And I'm not asking you to do something I haven't done before when I lived in Seattle and brought people down to Madison Park to see a terrible project. Fortunately, as Jim Quigg knows, because he fought the same issue 20 years after I did in the same neighborhood. So let's all get together and see if we can help each other understand what they're going through. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Highland Slobotkin. Highland?
Thank you, Council. And just want to say I'm the Rabbi Emeritus at Beit Tikva, the Siena congregation. We've been in Newcastle for 24 years this coming June. And just a couple thoughts about the flag controversy from a little different perspective. First of all, I've always thought it strange that our presidents get 1 day, our veterans get 1 day, those who've perished in wars get 1 day, our independence from Great Britain gets 1 day, Christmas is 1 day, but for some reason the LGBTQ plus community gets a whole month, the month of June, called Pride Month in other jurisdictions. So that's, first of all, it's always kind of strange that these other events that I think all Americans can relate to and understand, why does a sexual orientation get a whole month? Okay, that's one issue. Secondly, I did a little Google search this afternoon, and roughly there's 20 million Asian Americans. There's roughly 40 million Hispanic Americans. We don't have a nation flag. We don't have a Hispanic flag that we fly in Newcastle. There's roughly 8 million Jewish Americans. Why we don't have a Jewish flag that we fly? There are roughly 16 million veterans. We don't have a veterans flag. So to fly a flag for a sexual orientation seems to me not consistent with, does not represent our population here in Newcastle. And I just think having flags, the flags that are flown should be flags that everybody can relate to and understand, like the American flag, like the state flag. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Highland. Larry Fudge.
How you all doing again? I'm back. Quick thing about a little controversy we had trying to get that video up here. Maybe it can be airdropped, just a suggestion, or a DirecTV link. I was wondering where the police security is tonight. I've seen them at almost all of our meetings. I just don't see them tonight. Another thing is, I know this Newcastle Way project's been canceled, and that's fine by me. What I would like to see, though, because it is kind of turning into a freeway through there, and they sure don't abide by the speed limit, is a passive way to address that. If any of you have been to Westport before, and you drive into town down past the store, and you get going a little bit too quick, and you kind of look down the road, and all of a sudden that police car's sitting there in the parking lot empty with a guy in a dummy suit in it, it sure makes your heart go, and you slow down. What would be really nice is if they had one of those radar signs with the digital readouts showing as they come to crest the hill with the police car sitting there. We have 5 or 6 of them sitting out back empty right now. You can park one on either end of that hill where people get a visual of that and slow down. Let's see. Moving on to that, we have, what does it take for me as a public speaker to do something nasty enough to get thrown out of this meeting? There needs to be something to address that. So if I got out of line and you guys felt like this was uncalled for language or uncalled for harassment directed at specifically some people on the council, and I've butted heads with a few of you, but we all have to kind of rein it in and not be so belligerent up here that we put everybody out in this audience off, including the media. And they've had a grand go at what we've done around here in the last month. So I just wondered if there's anything that you have in our policies that address that. To use their vernacular, it's hate speech on a lot of it, on a lot of fronts. Although I don't necessarily consider that because, again, military, which, by the way, if any of you don't know, only approximately 6% of the American U.S. living and current population has ever been in the military. So say thank you to one of them when you see them. You see one in a wheelchair on the street, maybe hand them a buck. They might need your help. It doesn't hurt, and it sure helps. The whole thing needs to be addressed, though. It's really keeping it calm. And thank you for your time. Keyboard warriors, beware. Look in the mirror.
Thank you, Larry. Next up, Allison Sweeney.
Good evening. My name's Allison Sweeney. I live in the Olympic Ridge neighborhood. I've been listening tonight to a couple issues that have been brought up, and anybody who's worked with me before knows that I love to problem solve, and I love a good brainstorming session, so here it goes. We have handicap parking spots out front. The people who park in those handicap parking spots come to this meeting and they might need a place to sit. So I might suggest in most public areas, there are seats that are reserved for people who need a handicap seat, who might need a chair reserved especially for them. That might be something we might want to consider in this room, that we have chairs reserved for those friends who need a chair. The other, I am not going to be political or controversial when I say this, so I'm biting my tongue a little bit. Post the time the chamber doors are open. You know that we have meetings that are going to be very well attended. Post what time the doors are opened to the chambers, and everybody is responsible for their own seat. We have seen this room be filled time and time again, and there have been times where 99.9% of those seats were filled by people who came here an hour and a half ahead of time and were let in early. And who even knows what early is? So if we're going to be fair and we're going to allow everybody an opportunity to have a seat, then post what time the doors are open, and everybody has the same opportunity for their chair as everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Good ideas. In fact, I asked the city clerk, based on a public comment, to order some chairs with arms. So she's ordered 2 chairs with arms because we had a public comment or a public person, not recently, but say she couldn't get out of the chair because there was no arms. So we are going to get those. They'll be in the front row. We'll make some kind of marking for people with, you know, that need those chairs. So that's, thank you. Good idea. Appreciate that. All right, Andy Jacobs, come on up.
Thank you, Council. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I felt compelled to just say a few personal things so that we have some people in the city that seem to want to make an issue with the flag and so on and so forth. My father was a veteran, so I appreciate anybody who served in the military. I've been married for 42 years, lived in Newcastle for 31 years, so I am a resident. I'm happy to give up my seat to anybody that needs a seat anytime, so feel free to tap me on the shoulder and ask to give up my seat. Appreciate the handicap suggestion. I thought that was a great idea. I'm going to say something personal about the flag because I think people come in every shapes and sizes and religious beliefs and what they want to do. I have a sister that's been married to a woman for 25 years. I've been married to my wife for 42 years. I think it's important that we all include everybody in the conversation, and it's not just about the flag. It's about lots of other things that go along with the flag. So I think we need to be cognizant of some of those issues and take a really hard look at the people in the community. I also want to offer to Councilman Quigg that if he sees a sign that he's offended by or that's old, he probably should stop and remove it. I know the city's pretty stretched on people that are working for the city to be able to take care of things like that. So just a suggestion. Look, we have a great community here. I think it's time we start paying attention to, look, I understand the passion about the gate. I don't live in a street that can have a gate, so, and my youngest kid is 30 years old. I certainly understand those issues, but there's lots of other things in the city that need to be discussed. On top of the fact that we spent a lot of time tonight, I perceive, and I don't know, that some of those issues probably could have been discussed amongst yourselves versus the time on the council here to take up some of those issues. Not referring to the gate, by the way. But thank you. I appreciate this is my 6th council meeting I've attended. Most of them pretty contentious. It's pretty calm tonight, so I thank you for that. I look forward to many more council attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. So what you're saying is that when you show up, it's contentious? Is that what you said? Ah, okay. All right, that was our last public commenter, and our public comment is closed. Okay, moving on now, we have our planning calendar. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just looking towards our April 15th meeting. It'll be report and presentation heavy. County Councilmember Dunn will be here to do a State of the County presentation. We'll also have Waste Management's annual report along with a CIP update, quarter one CIP update, quarter one finance update, and a quarter one crime stats update. And so along with a few consent items. And then we'll have the town hall will take the place of our first meeting in May. And then we won't meet in this chamber again until May 20th.
Questions for the city manager? Could we, and we'll discuss it later, but I made a note about discussing, what am I trying to say, the council use chamber, whatever, I mean, I'm trying to put it in words.
Public comment.
Well, how we address public comment and
Yeah.
seating and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, and we'll also add to unless the council wants it to not be on consent, we'll plan on adding to consent the flag policy as well.
Okay. Any questions? City manager, anybody? Okay. Thank you all for attending. The meeting is adjourned.